I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Disney's Frozen, based on the Hans Christian Andersen book, The Snow Queen, I believe it was, is without a doubt the best animated movie of the year. I honestly believe that really the only serious competition this thing has for being the best animated movie of the year is from Up on Poppy Hill, that one movie by Studio Ghibli. Honestly, when I saw the trailers for this thing, it did not sell me at all. The trailers just, it looked like okay, generic princess movie. It has some obnoxious looking comic relief in it, and yeah, it doesn't really look like anything I'm too keen to see. And then I started hearing some of the reviews. I've heard critics call this Disney's best work in years. Their best work since The Lion King, and on the same level as Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid and very acclaimed movies like that. So, upon being severely underwhelmed by the Hunger Games sequel, I'm sure I'm likely to get many disagreements with me on that, but upon not really being that impressed with that one, I said, you know what, Frozen is getting very good reviews. I'm gonna go see Frozen, and I went to see it, and you know what, it's honestly one of the best movies I've seen all year. Frozen is I don't want to even say a great animated movie. It's just a great movie. It has colorful characters. It has fantastic songs. It has gorgeous animation. The 3D is even pretty good. Yeah, if you want my brief review, because I know I tend to go on a little long-winded with these videos. If you want my brief review, go see it. It's excellent. And I really think it's much more justified than to be a CG animation, to be done with CG animation, than something like Tangled was. And I really liked Tangled, but there were certain parts of that movie where I questioned, okay, why is this being done with CG animation? This seems like something you could easily do just as well with traditional 2D animation. But here they use the 3D animation to its fullest. They use it to very good atmospheric 3D effects, and they use the computer to make the visuals and just look stylistically very pleasing to the eye. So what's the story? The story is it's the magical kingdom, or not magical kingdom. Well, I guess it's kind of magical. It's set in the fantasy realm of Arendelle, and the design of this place, the design of Arendelle, how it's kind of this city next to this big harbor, this big ornate harbor. It honestly really looked like the Grey Havens from The Lord of the Rings. But I digress. City of Arendelle, and the king and queen have two daughters, two princesses. One of whom has a magical gift of essentially being able to create ice, to be able to shoot ice, being able to wield ice to create all sorts of fantastic shapes. But everything she touches basically turns cold. So it's, if you want to try and picture a visual analogy of this chick's powers in your head, imagine Iceman from X-Men, crossed with I believe King Midas from Greek mythology, the Greek king where everything he touched turned to gold. That's basically the gist of it. The the sister with ice powers is named Elsa, and her younger sister, the more rambunctious sister, is named Anna. And one night, these two toddlers are playing around with Elsa's ice powers, and Elsa accidentally injures Anna. So their parents take them to these mystical trolls. These mystical trolls that can that they're basically like armadillos, or almost like armadillos, because they kind of compress themselves to look like rocks. So they take him to these mystical trolls, and the lead troll is like, we will take away Anna's memory of Elsa having these powers, so she doesn't get any more crazy ideas. But we will not take away the fun that they used to have, whatever that means. We will, and we strongly suggest that you keep them apart. You keep Elsa away from society, because she will likely be seen as this freak. She will be cast out. So the parents do just that, and the dad. I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but the dad, just in terms of design, I don't know who voiced their father, but their father kind of looked like Carrie Elways, which I don't know. I mean, Carrie Elways isn't in enough good movies nowadays, so might as well use his likeness. But the parents separate them, and as both of them grow up, Elsa becomes more and more frightened and more sad at the same time, at not being able to go out in public, and B, having to fight a constant battle to contain her power. She actually has to wear these gloves to prevent freezing something that she touches. And Anna basically grows up essentially without friends, because they close the castle gates. I mean, if you can believe that neither of these girls have psychological scarring of any kind, that's just something you have to expect from a Disney movie. I mean, you can't really overthink the premise too much in something like this. But Anna grows up very lonely. She at one point she says, I've even resorted to talking to the pictures. I'm not even going to go into some of the more foreboding undertones that can carry. But eventually the parents the king and queen have to go away on this voyage for some reason, and due to a storm, they're washed underneath the sea. So these two girls essentially end up alone in this castle, and both of them are very lonely. And 3 years later, Elsa has come of age, and she's scheduled to be crowned queen. So already this is kind of a step in the right direction for feminists who watch Disney movies, because very rarely do princesses ever become queens in Disney movies. That's something a lot of people have noticed and a lot of people have taken issue with. So Elsa is being crowned queen, and she basically has some full-on communication with Anna for the first time in years. And Anna basically questions, why have you shut me out? Blah 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 blah. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but eventually the secret gets out. Elsa has ice powers, so she runs away and secludes herself in the mountains, inadvertently encasing the entire kingdom in a blanket of ice. So Anna sets off amidst a slew of colorful characters to try and reconnect with her sister and bring warmth and peace back to the kingdom. So there's your premise. And it's a strong premise. I mean, when I was sitting down watching this movie and being hit with this really kind of dark and depressing premise, I was just like, oh, okay, I think this is somewhat of a different movie than was advertised. Um, but I will bear with this movie. And right away, I want to talk about the voice acting because because the voice of Anna, the non-magical sister, is done by Kristen Bell, and I don't mind Kristen Bell, but I just can't stand a lot of her movies. Um, I think she got her big break in Veronica Mars, I believe it was, which I never watched. So I've had very limited experience in watching Kristen Bell performances, but what I've noticed in this movie is that not only can she, I mean, I think she's in her 30s at this point. She can sound innocent. She can sound very likable, but at the same time, she also has a very believable, very very I hate using the word again, innocent sounding singing voice. Um, I mean, she can sing fairly well, and I think that's also, and I think this kind of mirrors the reason why I really liked Mandy Moore in Tangled, because Mandy Moore I think is one of the few actresses who can genuinely both act and sing. So so it turns out Kristen Bell is another one of those few actresses. So so Kristen Bell does a good job. I mean, at the beginning, she's certainly rambunctious. She certainly has that almost ADHD type energy, but it never really becomes obnoxious. And by the end, she does go through a believable arc. You do believe she's matured, and this doesn't all have to do with Belle's performance. This also has to do with the writing and 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 how the how the script forces her to learn some of these very real life issues, like don't become in love with the idea of love. So but I'll get to that later. Probably my favorite performance in the movie is done by Idina Menzel. I think that's how you say her name. She was I think she got a big break in Wicked, the Broadway show Wicked, and she voices Elsa. She voices and sings the role of Elsa, and wow, is she great in this movie. I mean, not only does she give a really compelling dramatic performance as this very conflicted older sister, but but this became very apparent to me to her when she did her solo piece, "Let It Go," around the 1/3 or halfway point of the movie. Idina Menzel can sing damn good. I mean, she sings so well in this movie. I was actually very shocked at how much I was liking a lot of the songs in this movie, and that was mainly due to two things. A, the lyrics are very are fairly creative, and also the ones who are singing the songs can actually sing, and you like hearing them sing because they have very beautiful voices. So yeah, there, and it's a good thing too because there are a lot of songs in this movie. But again, I'll get to that later. I think you have Jonathan Groff. I could very well be saying his name wrong. I I could very well be forgetting his name, but he voices this ice salesman, this Arctic entrepreneur, if you will, named Christoph. So, and he's out of business because you can't really sell ice in a kingdom full of winter. They're just not in. It's just not in demand. So, he gets roped into helping Anna get to the top of the mountain to talk to her sister. And while he doesn't really get as much time to develop as the main two leads, he's likable enough. He's kind of like Flynn Rider light. I hate to keep making comparisons to Tangled, but the thing with Flynn Rider in Tangled is that he got enough time to really develop very likable personality, this very this very charismatic demeanor, and Kristoff, they're trying to go for that same thing, but I mean they're trying to go for this very charismatic working class guy, and like I said, it's not that he's a non-character, because he is a fairly likable character, but again, not as much time is given to him as is probably necessary to fully develop. Another character is I forget who plays this guy, but the little snowman you see in every single trailer, the Olaf guy, who's essentially the comic relief. This was the character who I saw in the trailer, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be one of those characters. I mean, it's gonna be a Skids and Mudflap. It's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be one of those really obnoxious comic relief sidekicks who is not funny in the least, and who you just want to see die throughout the whole movie. And when he showed up, I groaned in my seat like, oh god, here he comes. But to my surprise, he's actually not bad. And there are a lot of reasons why. The writing allows him to actually be funny, to simultaneously be funny and likable. You don't want to see him die. I know that's kind of an extreme compliment, but yeah, he does become somewhat endearing by the end of the movie. You really like this guy because you can see he is genuinely trying to support the main characters, and he's not just coming in to do his little shtick and be like, oh hey, I'm funny for the kiddies. I mean, he's not bad, and I think some of that has to do with the performer. And at first I thought it was Josh Peck who was voicing him, and I was wrong on that point. I want to say Josh Gad. I think that's what his name is, something like that. But something about his very almost naive, very very playful, very loyal sounding performance that really just draws you in and makes you go, oh, okay, I'm all right with this character. He seems cute. So I was really surprised at how much I did not want the comic relief to be crucified. And when he started melting, I'm not giving anything away by saying that. When he started melting, I was not nearly as cheerful as I thought I would be. I was not nearly as hopeful for his death as I was expecting. So kudos on that point. Let's see who else. Alan Tudyk is also in this movie, and Alan Tudyk, I like him as an actor, but it seems like when he's doing voice work for these new Disney movies, these new CG Disney movies, because he was in Wreck-It Ralph, he played the bad guy in Wreck-It Ralph, and he plays somewhat of a supporting bad guy in this. He plays this very snobby, very bottom line decision making Duke from another kingdom who comes and basically wants to satisfy his own ends. He wants to meet the queen. He wants to basically exploit the kingdom, and I didn't like this character. And I know what they were going for. They were trying to make this guy a deliberately snobby character, so that you would laugh at how deliberately slimy he is, how deliberately mean he is. They were trying to essentially go for what Biff Tannen was in the Back to the Future movies. How Biff Tannen, he didn't really have any depth, but he wasn't supposed to. He was a walking punchline. He was, for every insult he dealt out to others, or for nearly every insult he dealt out to others, you could laugh at at him in his stupidity and in his just paper thin personality, because he was essentially an idiot, and you laughed at this idiot trying to assert himself over everyone else. And I get the feeling that's kind of what they were going for with this character. And the reason I don't like this character isn't really because of Tudyk's performance, but just the way he's written. I mean, maybe it's because of the prejudice prejudice and the very open hostility he displays against the two heroines. He's very, because when Elsa is revealed to be the titular Ice Queen, the Snow Queen, he's like, hunt her down and kill her, and I thought that was going a little far for a character that's essentially supposed to be this very idiotic comic relief character. But thankfully he doesn't ruin the film. He doesn't really ruin any scenes he's in, and he does get the occasional funny line. Particularly at the beginning when he's entering the kingdom. I won't give it away, but he's entering the kingdom, and he basically exposits his plan to his two henchmen. So that was kind of funny. I did chuckle at that. And I also kind of chuckled at the Rapunzel cameo when all the people were entering the kingdom, when the gates were finally getting opened. But I digress. So yeah, where else does this movie succeed? The songs. When I heard this was a musical, I was just like, okay, this is either going to work phenomenally well, or this is going to be a real chore to sit through, because I had heard there were a lot of songs in the movie. So when I heard there were going to be songs in this movie, I was a little trepidatious. But again, to my surprise, the songs, most if not all of them, are catchy. They are very heartfelt. I mean, these songs, they don't feel exploitative in any way. They don't feel unjustified in tugging at your heartstrings and or providing some tonal relief to try and bring some lighthearted fun back into the movie. None of them feel deliberately out of place. So, I mean, I think I keep wanting to use the word verisimilitude, which is basically saying very truthful, and that's a word that Richard Donner used a lot in describing Superman and how he described wanting to make a Superman movie. So, and I think that to a certain extent is the same here, because the main characters basically reek of verisimilitude. All of their goals are understandable. Their motivations are understandable. That you believe a lot of their motivations. None of the emotions feel artificial. None of them feel tacked on. None of them feel melodramatic. I mean, they managed to stay innocent without feeling exploitative of the younger teen or younger preteen girls in the audience. So I really have to applaud the movie, because it really seems to find a nice balance of a lot of its elements. And probably my two favorite songs in the movie are the beginning. I think it's called Frozen Heart. It's at the very beginning of the movie, and it's when all these guys are picking away at the ice, and they're singing about ice and how it's and basically how it can be very harsh, it can be very useful, blah 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 blah, and it was almost Viking-esque, so in style. It kind of reminded me of some of the songs that the dwarves sing in The Hobbit. So I really like that song, and one song that I think is going to get nominated for Best Original Song is "Let It Go," which is sung by Idina Menzel. This song, more so than a lot of the rest, is simultaneously heartbreaking and very good at building at building this emotional energy that reaches this peak at the beginning, and it does not go on for too long. It does not go on. It does not go on too short. It goes on for just the right amount of time, and it's just got a nice feel to it, and Idina Menzel's voice, it just lends it so much emotion. Not too much. It just lends so much. It really pulls on the heartstrings. Like I said, more so than the other ones, because the Snowman song, like "Do You Want to Build a Snowman" and "For the First Time in Forever," those are good. And Kristen Bell does a good job in singing those, but for some reason, I got much more invested when Idina Menzel broke out in song when she sang "Let It Go." Maybe that's because it was my favorite character. Maybe it's because the tone of the song really fit the tone of the movie and the feeling that the character was going through at the time. I don't know. I just really love that song. And like I said, all the songs are very good. There are some that are better than others, but for the most part, every single one of them is very solid. Which actually left me kind of disappointed when there weren't as many songs in the second half, because they do kind of fade away for action or more visual drama. So yeah, what else? The animation, like I said, I can understand far more why this was done with computers as opposed to Tangled, because a lot of why this movie is so good comes from the visuals. This movie is just gorgeous, and that really hit me when I saw the water and the snow and all they can do stylistically with this stuff in the computer, because there were many points in this movie where I just went, wow, that is amazing. That is Pixar level right there, and in some respects I think it actually goes above Pixar. It's really something to see. And that's partially why this movie is a good candidate for a 3D movie. I think it's worth the extra few bucks to go see it in 3D. Not that you would necessarily feel that you're missing out on anything in 3D if you go see it in 2D, but to me, it's kind of like Hugo. Although Hugo was done somewhat better, but it's kind of like Hugo, where it uses the 3D as it is meant to be used. It uses it for atmospheric purposes. It uses it to kind of extend the visual medium, as it were. It's like I said, it's really something to see. That actually could be another reason why I really like the "Let It Go" segment of the movie, because while she is singing that Elsa is basically building a castle out of this very glass-like ice. And the way they make it very. The way they go about this crystal-esque ice, and how they seamlessly, or not seamlessly, they beautifully show the transition between regular snowy ice material to just this very fine, very smooth, glassy material is just really something to behold, and really speaks volumes for how far computer animation has come since the days of Toy Story or any of the early days of Pixar, really. It's gorgeous. This is just beautiful animation. And let's see. The story is also fairly solid. I mentioned this at the beginning. The premise is, I mean, it gets you hooked. It kind of depresses you, but this premise gets you very hooked on on what these characters are about, and it really makes you interested to know what is eventually going to happen. And where I think some of the strengths in the story kind of decrease in intensity is particularly near the end and throughout the second half, where they're having where they're having all these chases and misadventures, and they're trying to tie up all the loose ends at the toward the climax. By that point, it's not that the movie loses its momentum or loses any of the drama, but it's kind of like Thor. Thor immediately got you hooked with all this with this very interesting realization of Asgard and all these Norse gods, and they were fighting frost giants, and then Thor got sent to Earth, and it was like, oh, okay, we're going to something less interesting now. It's kind of like that, and Thor never really surpassed that first 20 minutes, the first 20 or 30 minutes, and this is kind of the same way. It never really quite gets beyond the first half. The second half is still very, very good, but it never reaches the phenomenal heights of the first half. It's almost there. It's almost there, but the first half is just a little bit better. And a lot of that has to do with the tone of these misadventures and all these daring escapes and very over the top action scenes is they somewhat diminish the more kind of serious, foreboding, almost somber tone of the first half. But like I said, everything comes back around in the end, and by the end of it, you'll still feel like this movie very successfully pulled at your heartstrings. You'll still feel very emotionally satisfied. You won't feel that the movie completely shot itself in the foot around the halfway point. The movie never shoots itself in the foot. I mean, it never really goes to that extreme. It just gets slightly not as good. Like I said, still very, very good, but it never gets up there. I mean, as the movie goes on, it's very awesome, very, very, very visually and emotionally investing, and then towards the halfway point, it kind of subsides and goes down, and here's where we are at the end of the movie. But it never gets bad. It never gets mediocre. It never really gets to the point of just being okay. It's like I said, it's so far it has my vote for best animated movie of the year, and it's probably going to end up on my best movies of the year list. It's just an all around fantastic movie. These characters are likable. You really feel for these characters. You really feel for the drama going on. The visuals are just outstanding. The 3D actually adds something, and it really does. I have to agree with a lot of the critics here. It really does evoke memories of that classic Disney Renaissance, and even Disney pictures before that, where they're taking their audience more seriously than a lot of kids' movies are now, because a lot of the early Disney movies and a lot of the movies in the Disney Renaissance were very atmospheric by nature. They were, I mean, a lot of them could easily set this very foreboding atmosphere that I think has somewhat become lost in family movies nowadays, or not lost, but somewhat less frequent, somewhat less well known. And this is a step back in the right direction. This is a step this is a step back into that very successful time in Disney's career, while also throwing in a few clever changes. Like I don't think feminists will have much issue with this movie because both of the female heroines are are very empowering to women, and they're very strong characters. You really feel for them. You don't really feel like they're damsels in distress. But yeah, go see Frozen. I mean, in my opinion, it's far above The Hunger Games Catching Fire. Yeah, Frozen, great movie, and I walked out of that theater very satisfied. There was applause from the packed theater that I was sitting in, and for once, I thought it was very well deserved. That should tell you something.